was a hot August afternoon on Chicago's east side, the kind of day when the air feels heavy and loud. Christopher Mad Max Jackson was trying to make it inside a building on 76th and Kingston, his white shirt already turning dark from the blood. A woman screamed near the gate, and somewhere in the chaos, he mumbled, "He shot me." That's Terrell. Sirens echoed through South Shore while cops rushed in, and the whole block knew something major just went down. That was the day one of Terrortown's most feared names finally got caught slipping. But stories like his don't start with bullets. They start with the streets that raised him. If you ever drive down from 75th to 79th between Yates and Colfax, you'll feel that weight in the air that never really leaves. That stretch of the east side ain't a regular neighborhood. It's a maze of cracked sidewalks, liquor stores with bulletproof glass, and boarded up homes that have been abandoned since the 90s. Old heads still call it Terrortown, a name that stuck from back when gunfire echoed almost every night. Folks don't just survive there. They adapt like soldiers in a war nobody planned. Way before NLMB even existed, that side of Chicago was already a battlefield. Back in the mid-80s, the Black Keystone Nation ran the blocks like a small army. They came out of Woodlawn carrying Jeff Fort's name like gospel, building a mix of power, protection, and fear. When crack cocaine hit the city, it turned corners into money machines, and every crew wanted control. By the time the 2000s rolled around, kids were born into gang colors like it was part of their birthright. It wasn't about ideology anymore. It was about respect, money, and survival. By 2011, the police had finally caught up to some of the big names. Operation Terrortowner 2 hit the east side like a hammer, pulling in Prince E, nephew of Jeff Fort, and locking him down on a $15,000 a day drug operation. Cops said they were selling heroin and crack out of abandoned houses, guarded by lookouts with walkie-talkies. But when the task force swept through, they didn't clean the streets, they just created a vacuum. The older bosses were gone, and the young wolves suddenly had no one telling them what not to do. That's when the chaos multiplied. See, the streets don't stay empty for long. When one set falls, another rises to take their spot. Around the same time, two small cliques started growing from that hole: No Limit and the Muskegon Boys. No Limit had Black Keystone roots, while the Muskegon Boys came from a renegade branch of the Gangster Disciples. Normally that kind of mix shouldn't happen because the Stones and the Disciples were rivals under different alliances. But when you're surrounded by enemies and broke as hell, rules start to fade quick. No Limit ran the area near 75th and Colfax, throwing up their hood like a badge. Muskegon Boys held ground around 76th and Merrill, hustling with the same hunger. They didn't trust each other at first, but the streets forced a decision. Black Mob was pressing from one side, Lakeside was moving up, and KTS Boys were turning every corner into a target zone. Both groups were losing friends and both were getting tired of fighting alone. That's when they made the call that changed everything. They came together out of pure necessity. No Limit had the manpower, Muskegon Boys had the connections. Together they became the No Limit Muskegon Boys, or NLMB. It wasn't a regular merger, it was a street alliance built on revenge, loyalty, and survival. Over time, the name took a new meaning: never leave my brothers. Some say that phrase came from a fallen homie who used to say it every time he left the block, like a promise that no one gets left behind. Others say it just became a code that felt right for how they lived. Either way, it stuck, and NLMB became a family with one rule: loyalty before everything. As the 2000s moved in, NLMB built their reputation fast. They had young shooters, rappers, and hustlers all repping the same banner. The older Stones didn't understand how they blended with GDs, but on the east side, nobody cared about politics anymore. It was about survival and respect. Every funeral, every song, every retaliation just tightened their bond. The city saw a gang. They saw a brotherhood. Terrortown wasn't just a place anymore. It was an identity, carved in blood and history. The corners had stories, the alleys had ghosts, and the walls carried names written in marker beside candles that never stayed lit for long. Out there, kids didn't dream about leaving. They dreamed about making it one more day. And when you grow up in that kind of world, the streets don't just raise you, they own you. Because when the streets raise you, they don't give refunds. After Operation Terrortown shook the blocks, the east side started changing faster than anyone could handle. The older dudes were locked up or hiding out, and the young ones didn't want to wait for orders anymore. Chicago always had that split between the People Nation and the Folk Nation, like two religions fighting for the same streets. The Black Keystone, Vice Lords, and Latin Kings rocked with the people side, while the Gangster Disciples, Black disciples, and Imperial Insanes held down the folk side. Normally that line was something nobody crossed without dying for it, but the new generation was tired of listening to rules made before they were born. That's where NLMB came in, doing what no one thought could ever happen. The Black P-Stone side brought the No Limit Boys, and the Renegade GD branch brought the Muskegon Boys. They joined together on the east side around 75th and Colfax, right near the border of South Shore and Grand Crossing. That alliance wasn't some boardroom deal. It was built through blood and chaos. The older Stones didn't respect the move at first, but the young ones didn't care. They were fighting for their own names, not for some gang politics from the mid-'80s. The people versus folk system was supposed to keep order, but by 2010 that order was gone. Kids were fighting kids from the next block without even knowing what flag their set claimed years ago. NLMB didn't care about the 6-point star or the 5-point crown anymore. Their loyalty came from shared pain, not paperwork or codes from prison gangs. It wasn't about ideology, it was survival. Every member lost someone. Every member had a name on a wall somewhere, and that's what made them dangerous. When the two sides finally shook hands, the energy on the east side shifted heavy. They became one of the few hybrid sets in the city. The name stood for No Limit Muskegon Boys, but also Never Leave My Brothers. Depending on who you asked, it meant you ride for your block, your homies, and the ones you lost. It didn't matter if your cousin was a GD or a Stone. If he stood next to you, he was your brother. That kind of loyalty didn't exist much in Chicago anymore, and that's why NLMB grew so quick. Inside NLMB, smaller cliques formed their own branches. You had the 150 Dream Team, mostly holding down Colfax Avenue. Then you had the Wet Team, known for robberies and hits. Fazoland became their main base, named after a young member called Fazo who got killed outside a party in 2010. His death hit the set hard because he was one of the few trying to hold everyone together. When he died, it felt like the streets stole something pure from them. His friends started tagging Fazoland on the walls, promising revenge. That spot on the east side turned into both a memorial and a warning. Not long after, another name joined the list, Kobe, real name Jacoby Herring. He was a basketball player from the same area, talented enough to maybe go somewhere if life had gone right. He got killed in 2013 at a dice game, shot over an argument that should have ended with words. His death was another nail in the heart of the block. For them, these weren't just names. These were brothers, cousins, teammates, and neighbors. Losing them made the code even stronger. The phrase, "Never leave my brothers," wasn't a slogan anymore. It became survival language. Inside NLMB, every new recruit got the same message: loyalty, silence, and respect. You don't talk to cops and you don't run from war. The code of no talking was serious. Snitching meant isolation or worse. The older heads like Crazy James and Mally used to test new recruits by sending them on errands that could get them caught. You had to prove your silence before they ever gave you a gun. The ones who passed became soldiers. The ones who failed disappeared from the picture. The line between the streets and the studio started blurring when G Herbo and Lil Bibby started dropping music. They were both NLMB from the same blocks, using rap as their escape plan. Herbo's lyrics sounded like field reports, while Bibby's voice made his verses sound like street sermons. NLMB wasn't just a crew anymore. It was a brand that mixed street energy, grief, and money into something the city hadn't seen before. Their reputation spread through drill music and YouTube clips showing them holding guns and flashing signs that law enforcement started tagging as gang propaganda. By 2014, NLMB was all over social media, their symbols showing up on walls and album covers. Cops said they were making 6 figures daily from drugs and fraud, while fans online called it rumor. The number that kept floating around was $150,000 a day. Whether that was true or not, it became part of their legend. On the east side, perception matters more than truth, and NLMB had both working in their favor. They had soldiers who could rap, rappers who could shoot, and hustlers who could do both. The world started watching, but nobody outside Chicago really understood what they were watching. NLMB wasn't chasing fame. Fame just followed the violence. Out there, street reputation and music recognition walked the same tightrope. You could get rich or you could die trying, and for most of them, both felt like the same thing. When G Herbo dropped Welcome to Fazoland in 2014, he didn't just release a mixtape, he gave the world a look inside his reality. Every track felt like a diary written from the front lines of Chicago's East Side. Songs like Fight or Flight and 4 Minutes of Hell Part 3 were filled with names streets and memories that outsiders couldn't fully grasp. It wasn't fiction, it was documentation. He named the project after Fazo, the friend who died too young, and that alone gave it weight. Herbo rapped about ducking indictments, surviving shootouts, and watching friends turn into hashtags. The cover art showed him wearing a hoodie with 150 printed across it, the same number carved into the street poles near Colfax Avenue. Even before record labels noticed, the city already crowned him as the voice of Terrortown. In interviews, he said the project was his way of keeping his fallen brothers alive through music, not just for clout but for legacy. A year later, he came back with Ballin' Like I'm Kobe, another dedication to Jacoby Herring, the basketball player turned memory. That tape hit different because it sounded like healing through trauma. The intro even started with a phone call from an incarcerated NLMB member giving him the green light to tell their story. Herbo wasn't glamorizing the block. He was trying to survive it by turning pain into poetry. While Herbo was finding his rhythm in the booth, Lil Bibby was building his own name through the Free Crack series. His voice was rougher, like someone who smoked too much but had something to say. Free Crack came out in 2013 and hit the streets like wildfire. It was inspired by Lil Wayne's The Drought 3 mixtape, but Bibby flipped it into his own story about Chicago hustle culture. He rapped about his come up, about selling weed to pay bills, and about losing homies to gunfire. The project didn't sound rich, it sounded hungry. When Free Crack 2 dropped in 2014, the streets were already calling Bibby a Chicago version of Meek Mill. He talked about life between probation visits and studio sessions. Tired of Talking became an anthem for kids who grew up watching death from their front porch. Bibby didn't hide that he used to hustle before rap. He told interviewers straight up that he didn't want to end up another story, like Fazo or Kobe. Their music started traveling beyond the city, and with that came heat. Chicago PD began monitoring their shows, showing up at concerts to see who attended. The feds linked NLMB with multiple shootings and started building long investigations using lyrics as evidence. In one interview, Herbo said, "They think we're promoting violence, but we're just surviving it." It was a statement that summed up the double life every NLMB member lived. Even with the fame, the tension never left. Rivals used their music to mock them, and fans from the other side threw diss tracks right back. What should have been a way out became another battlefield. Yet both Herbo and Bibby kept going, touring, signing deals, and showing people from their side of the city that there was another path. Still, the hood doesn't forget. While Herbo was performing on stage in New York, one of his closest soldiers was back in Terrortown running the streets. That soldier was Christopher Mad Max Jackson, the one people whispered about in barbershops and police stations alike. Herbo had found his voice in rap, but Mad Max was writing his story in the streets. Both came from the same soil, but only one of them was still knee-deep in it. And while the lights shined bright on stage, the shadows in Terrortown were getting darker by the day. Christopher Jackson was born somewhere around 1995, right on the east side of Chicago, where opportunity was already running low. He grew up near 75th Street, bouncing between small apartments with his mother and younger sister. His father wasn't really around, locked up early in his childhood, and that absence hit him hard. People in the neighborhood remembered him as a quiet kid who stayed outside longer than he should, spending nights on the corner just to avoid going home. His mother struggled with addiction for years, and sometimes neighbors would feed him or let him crash on their couch when things got rough. That kind of upbringing didn't raise him soft, it raised him numb. He went to Bowen High School for a while, sitting in the back of class with his hoodie up, barely talking. Teachers said he had potential because he was smart when he actually focused, but school didn't hold his attention. The streets did. He started skipping classes and hanging around older boys from No Limit, the ones with cars, girls, and a name on the block. His cousin, a guy everyone called Slink, was part of the No Limit wet team. Slink used to come around flashing rolls of cash and sneakers still in the box, and that caught young Chris's attention fast when you're 14 and broke. Seeing someone your age living like a boss looks like freedom. Slink brought him into the mix early, teaching him how to move in silence. They started with small jobs, hitting parked cars and flipping whatever they could find. One story says his first break-in was at a corner store near Colfax Avenue, where he acted as lookout, while Slink grabbed the cash drawer. Nobody got caught that night, and that little rush was enough to pull him in for good. Before long, Chris stopped being just a lookout. He wanted in on the action. Around 15, people started calling him C-Money. The name came from his habit of flashing bills on Facebook and using it to taunt other kids from rival sets. He'd pose with cash phones and caption it with lines about making real money before grown men. It was half joke, half message. But in Terrortown, names don't stay light for long. The money came from robberies, stolen checks, and street hustles. C Money was smart enough to move quiet, but not invisible enough to escape attention. Cops started recognizing him by face before they ever had his name. By 16, the rumors started spreading that he had already fired his first gun. People said it happened after a fight at a party near Merrill Avenue. The story went that someone from Lakeside threw a drink at him, and later that night shots rang out in retaliation. No police report ever confirmed it, but the whispers never stopped. On the east side, rumors grow faster than trees. From then on, everyone looked at him different. The same kid who used to ride a BMX bike around the block was now someone people crossed the street to avoid. The shift from C Money to Mad Max happened slowly. Some say it started when he stabbed a rival with a broken bottle during a fight and walked away laughing, face smeared in blood. Others said the name came from his attitude during shootouts, that he'd smile when everyone else ducked. The name stuck because it fit him. He started using it himself online, signing posts with Mad Max from 150 and building a persona that felt larger than life. By 17, he had that signature flatline haircut that became part of his image. People joked it meant making ops flat, a message that didn't need explaining. He wasn't the loudest in the room, but when he spoke, everyone listened. He had charisma that drew people in, even those who feared him. Some said he was loyal and funny with friends, always cracking jokes. Others described him as cold, like his mind was somewhere darker. Both could be true. Around that time, NLMB was gaining more attention through music, but on the streets, it was guys like Mad Max who kept their name feared. He wasn't one of the rappers or flashy hustlers. He was the enforcer people in the neighborhood said he didn't back down. Not from police, not from rivals, not from anyone. One local rumor said he once got jumped by 3 guys outside a liquor store and came back minutes later shooting. No one died, but his reputation did. It grew. By 2014, police intelligence reports had his name circled under the list of active NLMB members. His photo was shared in briefings between precincts in Grand Crossing and South Shore. He'd been questioned a few times, but never charged for anything serious. Detectives said he was always calm in interviews, speaking soft, never losing his cool. That scared them more than the loud ones. One officer described him as too relaxed for someone living that kind of life. Around the blocks of 76th, his name was said like a warning. Parents would tell their sons not to go near him, and even rivals admitted he was someone they didn't want to cross. The combination of silence, fearlessness, and unpredictability made him infamous. Some saw him as a young soldier fighting for his hood. Others saw him as a lost soul walking toward death too soon. Every block in Chicago has one of those stories. A kid with no direction who learned early that fear equals respect. Mad Max became that symbol on the east side, a reminder that in places like Terrortown, reputation often replaces purpose. Once his name hit the radar, there was no turning back. He wasn't the same boy who looked up to his cousin anymore. He had become his own story, one that everyone around him was too scared to tell until it was already too late. Back when the east side was still holding on to some order, NLMB and Black Mob weren't enemies at all. Both came from the same roots under the Black Keystone Nation, and older heads from both sides would pull up together at parties, family events, and basketball courts. They were even cousins across the two sets, so for a while, it felt like they had peace between them. The Black Mob set ran closer to 79th and Kingston, while NLMB held down 75th to Colfax, which was close enough to bump into each other daily, but far enough to stay separate. They traded stories, split hustles, and kept things neutral. Nobody really knows where it went wrong, but by 2012, that piece started cracking. Some people say it started with a dice game gone left. Others say a member from Black Mob robbed one of NLMB's spots on Merrill Avenue, and the retaliation went too far. The streets never gave a clear answer, but whatever sparked it turned into a full-scale war. What made it worse was that both groups still shared ties through the old Black Keystone structure, which made every move feel like betrayal. You could see cousins shooting at cousins, old friends turning into enemies overnight. That kind of war hits deeper because it isn't about colors anymore. It's about pride and survival. Black Mob didn't stay alone for long either. Once things turned bloody, they reached out to Lakeside, a clique known for rolling with the GDs, and the Kill to Survive set, also known as KTS. Those alliances flipped the East Side upside down because now NLMB was surrounded on nearly every corner. To the north was Pocket Town, allied with the Black Disciples. To the east was Lakeside, and to the south was KTS. The city became a map of red zones, and crossing the wrong street could get you caught in an ambush. By 2013, the streets were fully split. Every block had murals and candles for fallen soldiers, and those candles never stayed lit for long. Retaliations came daily, and NLMB was always in the middle of it. Each side had its young shooters trying to prove a point. The war stopped being about the first fight and became about body counts. For every friend killed, there had to be payback. Black Mob had their own rising name, a young rapper and shooter called Cedron Shellz Doles. He was known for being flashy but fearless, one of those guys who didn't hide from trouble. His crew used to post pictures in front of NLMB blocks, throwing signs and tagging locations online. It wasn't just a street war anymore, it had turned digital. Every death was followed by taunts on Facebook and coded lyrics on the SoundCloud. Cops started using those posts as evidence, but by then, the line between music and murder was too blurry to separate. On the NLMB side, the name people whispered was Mad Max. He wasn't famous like G Herbo or Lil Bibby, but his reputation was heavy. Whenever something happened to an op, people said his name like a rumor that everyone believed. The way he moved made him unpredictable. He'd be seen on 76 in the morning and across the city by sundown. His name popped up in every conversation about who was really out there handling business for NLMB. The violence between NLMB and Black Mob felt personal because it came from inside the same family tree. The older Stones saw it as betrayal of everything Jeff Fort built decades ago, but the younger generation didn't care about unity or structure. To them, loyalty ended at their block line. Every time NLMB lost someone, the rage grew deeper. Every time Black Mob took a hit, they came back harder. It was a cycle that nobody could stop. Lakeside's alliance with Black Mob added fuel to that fire. Lakeside was full of wild shooters who were quick to ride for revenge. They had ties with the KTS set, who were already known for moving aggressive. The KTS motto, "Kill to survive," wasn't just words, they lived by it. Once they got involved, shootouts started happening daily across East End and Exchange Avenue. Police scanners picked up multiple calls every night from the same neighborhoods, and residents got used to diving for cover when shots rang out. By 2014, Chicago PD labeled NLMB one of the most active hybrid gangs in the city. The task force linked them to multiple shootings, even though very few ever led to arrests. Mad Max's name was listed several times in intelligence briefings, not as a rapper or leader, but as an enforcer. He didn't want fame, he wanted fear. He was still in his late teens, but his name carried weight across South Shore, Woodlawn, and even into Chatham. People on the east side said he had no fear and no hesitation. He'd walk through rival blocks like it was his backyard, hoodie up, head low, moving calm. Even when police raided a nearby building on 76th Street, they couldn't catch him. He moved too clean, never talking on phones, never posting locations. In a city full of loud gangsters, he was the one who kept quiet and deadly. The more NLMB lost members, the deeper Max went into the war. He took everything personal, especially after losing close friends from Fazoland and 150. He became the type of person who didn't just retaliate, he planned. Some called him the Reaper of NLMB because every time one of theirs got dropped, an op followed soon after. It wasn't confirmed by police reports, but the pattern was too consistent to ignore. By 2015, the east side looked like it was under siege. Every corner had fresh bullet holes, and every night sounded like fireworks that never ended. For Mad Max, this was the world he knew best. The streets had raised him, and now they were feeding him back everything he gave them. Ops were everywhere, but Max moved like a ghost. He didn't brag, he didn't flinch, and he didn't slow down. While everyone else made noise, he was quietly building a legend that even his enemies couldn't deny. By 2013, the peace that once existed between NLMB and Black Mob had completely vanished, and the first big hit that would put Mad Max's name in circulation came that same year. Jordan Jefferson, a known member from Black Mob, was gunned down on a Sunday afternoon after leaving a small church gathering near Phillips Avenue. Witnesses said a gray car pulled up slow, shots went off, and Jordan dropped instantly on the sidewalk. Police arrived minutes later, but nobody saw anything. Word on the block spread that the shooter wore all black and didn't run. Folks from both sides whispered the same name, Mad Max. It wasn't in the police report, but everyone in Terrortown believed it. The way he moved, the calm in his approach, felt like something different. Detectives later included Christopher Jackson's name in internal memos as a possible suspect tied to multiple retaliatory shootings between 2013 and 2016. His name appeared in at least one Chicago PD gang report as a posthumous offender, meaning he was linked to murders after his death, based on intelligence and witness statements gathered later. But on the streets, those reports didn't matter. His legend was already alive. After Jordan's death, bodies started falling back to back, and each one carried a rumor with it. The next names whispered through the alleys were Hakeem, Bud, and Lolo, three figures connected to Lakeside and Black Mob. Hakeem was said to be shot while sitting on his porch near 78th Street. Bud was caught leaving a party near Merrill Avenue, and Lolo supposedly got hit outside a liquor store on Colfax. None of these murders ever got solved, but the streets linked them all to NLMB retaliation. Max's name floated in the middle of every conversation. People said he was out for vengeance, moving quietly through enemy blocks like he had something to prove. By 2015, his name wasn't just local gossip anymore. It was spreading across South Shore and Grand Crossing. The most infamous event that year came with the murder of KTS Vaughn, a well-known member from the Kill to Survive set allied with Lakeside. On June 23, 2015, Vaughn was shot multiple times on the 7500 block of South Ellis Avenue. Reports said he was high, playing dice in the open, when a black SUV pulled up. Two shooters stepped out, shouted something about no lacking, and let off more than a dozen rounds. Vaughn died on the spot, and within hours, social media exploded. NLMB affiliates started posting coded messages, and Mad Max updated his Instagram bio to Big No Limit the Smoker. That one post set the city on fire. It wasn't just a taunt, it was a public declaration of power. Blogs picked it up, YouTube channels turned it into clickbait, and police began using screenshots as digital evidence. Even though they couldn't tie him officially to the shooting, they watched him closer after that. For the streets, the message was clear. Mad Max was willing to take the war public. From that point on, everything started feeling like a domino effect. Between 2015 and 2016, multiple sets on the east side reported losing members, and most of them somehow traced back to NLMB. Two from Martown, one from MTG, and at least two from a smaller set called Stony Spot were rumored to be his work. One of the stories said he tracked a Stony Spot duo, Rocco and KD, to a motel on South Chicago Avenue and opened fire through the door. Police blotters from that week confirmed a double homicide in that area, though no names were ever released. People online immediately tied it to him. In every rumor there was one pattern: no civilians. That was the one thing everyone respected about him. Even cops who worked the East Side Task Force admitted that most of the killings tied to NLMB looked targeted, not random. He only went after gang members and rivals, never store owners, kids, or bystanders. That code gave him a strange kind of respect, even from people who didn't like him. In an interview years later, G Herbo mentioned that Max never touched civilians, saying he played the game how the game's supposed to go. In a city where kids often got caught in crossfire, that small distinction turned him into something close to a street soldier rather than a reckless killer. But that kind of life always comes with paranoia. By late 2016, his face was known in every rival neighborhood. People could spot him from the way he walked, the way he kept his hoodie tied up tight with his head low. Every corner store had someone watching for him. Every Instagram post from his side got screenshotted by the other. He stopped moving alone, but even in a crowd, he looked like someone carrying too many ghosts. Friends said he didn't sleep much anymore, always checking mirrors, always ready for something to happen. Detectives said he had one of the cleanest evasion records they'd seen for someone his age. He'd been named in at least 6 open investigations, questioned twice, and released both times no witnesses ever talked. People in Terrortown learned long ago that talking gets you killed faster than bullets. Cops said it was like chasing smoke. One officer described him as a ghost with a gun and no conscience. Around that time, drill music made everything worse. Every new death became another lyric, another diss track, another reason for someone to pick up a weapon. Rival rappers from Lakeside and Black Mob started naming dead NLMB members in their songs, and the replies came just as fast. The tension built like static in the air, waiting for a spark. Mad Max didn't rap, but his name appeared in lyrics from both sides. NLMB used him like a symbol of power, and the ops used him like a target for revenge. People said by then, he wasn't just shooting for payback anymore. He was writing his story through fear. Every bullet became part of his reputation, every death a message to anyone watching. Those who grew up around him said he didn't brag about the hits. He'd just sit quiet while others told the stories for him. That silence made him scarier. The city started feeling smaller. The more blood that hit the streets, the closer everyone got to the breaking point. By early 2017, word on the east side was that someone was about to cross the line completely. A young rapper from Black Mob was in the studio, recording a track that would call out NLMB by name, mocking their fallen members and taking shots at Mad Max himself. That song, once released, would change everything. The wars that had lived in the shadows were about to hit the spotlight, and the violence that followed would make every earlier feud look small. The streets already knew what came next, even before the beat dropped. By 2017, the war between NLMB and Black Mob had already turned into something past reason. Both sides had lost too many people to even remember where it started, but when a young rapper named Cedron Doles, better known as Shellz, decided to put everything into a song, he took that street tension and turned it into a spark. Shellz wasn't just any rapper. He was one of Black Mob's most outspoken voices. He grew up on the South Side, around 79th and Kingston, and he was known for having energy that matched his name. People said he could rap and shoot with equal confidence, and both were proven more than once. Shellz had been dropping tracks for a while, but nothing hit harder than one record called Death of 150. That track came out early in 2017 and was aimed directly at NLMB, the 150 Dream Team, and everyone tied to them. He called out names, dissed the dead, and mocked G Herbo and Lil Bibby by name. In the song, he said NLMB wasn't really active, that they were studio killers, and that their fallen members were nothing but hashtags. The disrespect ran deep because in Chicago, mentioning the dead isn't just a lyric, it's a declaration of war. When he shot the video, he stood on top of a car flashing gang signs with a gun tucked in his waistband, throwing hand gestures mocking NLMB blocks. That visual hit the internet fast, and it spread like wildfire across the city. Within days, NLMB affiliates filled comment sections with threats. "You just signed your death certificate," one user wrote under the video. On the east side, people were saying Shellz went too far. The way he mocked Fazoland and dropped names of people NLMB had lost broke every street code. It wasn't just a diss track anymore, it was seen as a challenge. Herbo himself never responded publicly, but NLMB members on the street took it personal. People said the vibe in Terrortown changed after that. You could feel it, like everybody was waiting for something to happen. On July 10th, 2017, just a few months after the song dropped, Shellz was walking near South Paulina Street on the south side. Around 9:30 in the morning, he was headed toward his white Hyundai when a car pulled up. Witnesses later said 3 masked men jumped out with rifles. They didn't say a word. They fired until the clips were empty, hitting him 17 times in the face and chest. When the police arrived, they found 43 shell casings on the ground. His body was unrecognizable. The scene was so brutal that even seasoned detectives said it looked like a military-style hit. Neighbors told reporters that they heard what sounded like automatic gunfire, and then silence. One woman said she saw one of the shooters calmly walk back to the car and drive off like nothing happened. No one else around was hurt, which showed how precise the ambush was. Whoever planned it came for one target only. The aftermath was instant and loud. Photos from the scene leaked online within hours. Social media filled with shock, and news stations picked it up that same day. The headlines read, "Chicago rapper executed in broad daylight." Videos of the scene spread through YouTube and Twitter before police could even block it off. For NLMB, the street said the mission was complete. For Black Mob, the pain turned into a vow for revenge. Police started investigating immediately, but it wasn't a regular homicide case. The way the murder was carried out suggested coordination, so the FBI got involved under the label of gang-related organized violence. Federal investigators connected it to a series of retaliations stretching back 5 years between NLMB and its rivals. At the time, no arrests were made, but the whispers were already there. Everyone knew who the main suspect was supposed to be: Mad Max. Rumors said Max had been one of the shooters that morning, moving with the precision people already feared him for. Nothing in official records named him publicly, but in 2021, Unsealed police memos confirmed his name appeared as a suspect. Detectives had listed Christopher "Mad Max" Jackson as possibly involved based on witness statements and ballistic links between that scene and older shootings. The memo didn't lead to charges because both Max and Shellz were dead by then, but it added fuel to the myth that had been growing for years. On the internet, bloggers and drill fans began piecing the story together, turning it into modern folklore. They said it wasn't just street beef, it was Chicago drill history written in blood. The diss track started it. The retaliation finished it. The YouTube video, Death of 150, now stood as a digital tombstone. The comments section filled with people arguing over who won the war, not realizing both sides were still dying. Inside NLMB, the killing was seen as closure. Members called it justice served. The final answer to all the disrespect their fallen brothers had faced. In the streets, they walked with their heads higher, proud that the one who mocked their dead had been silenced. But peace never follows revenge in Chicago. Black Mob and Lakeside saw it differently. For them, it was blood debt renewed, and they wanted it paid back. The murder of Shooter Shellz changed the way people looked at drill music. It proved that the words weren't just entertainment, they were blueprints for war. Every lyric could lead to a death, and every diss could start a new cycle. Even journalists started calling Chicago the city where music kills. Police said the murder marked a new level of coordination in street violence, one where songs became weapons. After the shooting, NLMB stopped posting online for a while, but people noticed something else. Mad Max started moving quieter, as if he knew his name was now part of something bigger. Cops were watching. Rivals were plotting, and every step felt like a countdown. His silence didn't calm the streets, it made them tenser. The song that started the feud kept circulating, but the man who recorded it was gone, and the man accused of avenging it was still out there walking. The East Side knew this wasn't the end. It was just another pause before the next explosion. And somewhere in the city, people began whispering that the clock was ticking for Mad Max too. By the summer of 2018, the city was quiet on the surface, but boiling underneath. NLMB still held strong across 75th to Colfax, but the streets were different now. Too many had died, and too many names had turned into hashtags. Mad Max was still around, moving through South Shore like someone who didn't believe in luck. He'd survived every rumor, every raid, every setup, and somehow stayed standing. People said he was untouchable, but others said he was just running out of time. He still rode through the hood in his silver Chevy, windows halfway down, hoodie tied tight, always carrying something in his lap. He spent most days between the 76th and Kingston, sometimes at a woman's apartment, sometimes on Colfax, posted with the younger NLMB members who looked at him like a ghost that never died, but the same people who admired him also whispered that he was slipping. His circle was smaller, and some of the old heads said he was acting too reckless. He'd show up unannounced in enemy zones, laugh about shootouts, and post small hints online that gave people his location. The same paranoia that used to protect him started turning into carelessness. At the same time, the rivals were watching closer than ever. Black Mob and Lakeside hadn't forgotten Shooter Shellz. They were still nursing that pain, still waiting for the right moment. Rumors said multiple crews had agreed that if they ever caught Max lacking, that would be the end of it. He had become the prize, the one name that could even the score. The streets called it karma coming back around. That summer, a name started floating through the blocks. Terrell Webb, better known as KTS Hellrell. He was from the KTS set, known for the same coldness that made Max famous. He was tight with the Lakeside and Black Mob crews, especially with guys connected to KTS Vaughn and KTS Dre. Both killed in past shootings linked to NLMB. Hellrell had history in this war, and he was known for wanting payback. People said he'd been looking for Max since early that year, following tips through girlfriends, parties, and social media. No one really knows what pulled them into the same orbit that August. Some said it started over a woman. Others said it was over money from a drug split gone wrong, but the people closest to both believed it was revenge, plain and simple. Max had taken too many lives tied to their side, and they weren't about to let him fade out peacefully. August 3rd, 2018 was hot and heavy, the kind of Chicago afternoon where the pavement burns your shoes. Max was seen earlier that day around 2 p.m., walking near the Courtyard Apartments on 76th and Kingston. He had been with a woman, someone the street said was friendly with both sides. She was by the gate talking on her phone when he walked ahead toward the building entrance. Witnesses said she called out his name just before a car turned the corner. Two men stepped out, both in black. The first one opened fire before Max could even react. Bullets tore into his back and stomach, and he fell near the door trying to crawl inside. The woman screamed and ran. Neighbors heard everything. Short bursts, then silence. When the shooters left, they moved fast, jumping back into a gray sedan that sped off toward Yates. When the police arrived, Max was still breathing, face down, blood spreading under him. Paramedics flipped him over, pressed down on the wounds, and loaded him into the ambulance. One of them said he tried to talk, but his words came out broken. He was taken to the University of Chicago Medical Center in critical condition. Doctors worked for hours that night. The bullets had torn through his liver and intestines, and he had lost too much blood before reaching the hospital. They put him through multiple surgeries, kept him under sedation, and restrained his hands because he kept trying to pull out the breathing tubes. Police stayed by the door waiting for him to wake up. They already suspected who shot him, but they needed confirmation. It took almost 20 hours before Max could speak clearly. When detectives came in with a photo lineup, they showed him faces from different sets. His eyes were swollen. His voice was weak, but he pointed at one photo and said, "He shot me. That's Terrell." The room went quiet. One of the detectives asked again, and he repeated it. "He shot me, that's Terrell." The words came out slow, like he knew exactly what they meant. That one sentence broke everything he had built. For years, Max lived by the code. Never talk, never fold, never give information to cops. The streets had rules, and snitching was the biggest violation of them all. But pain changes people. When he said those words, it wasn't about loyalty anymore. It was survival instinct. He wanted someone to know before it was too late. He died later that night around 11:45 p.m. after going into cardiac arrest. Police officially listed his death as homicide by gunfire. The streets listed it as the end of an era. When word spread that he had identified his shooter before dying, people refused to believe it at first. But once the story hit the reports, the silence around his name changed. Some said he betrayed the code. Others said he was human in his last moments. For NLMB, it felt like a tragedy they had seen coming. For Black Mob and Lakeside, it was vengeance completed. The city didn't hold vigils for him, but his name ran through conversations everywhere. His death didn't bring peace. It brought another round of whispers and promises. Some said if Terrell got caught, NLMB would answer back, but the streets don't keep balance. They just keep moving. Mad Max's story ended in that courtyard, face down on the same kind of concrete he had walked all his life. He went out the same way he lived, surrounded by noise, loyalty, and betrayal. His last words weren't to his friends or his family. They were to the cops, and in the streets he ruled, that became the one sin he could never come back from. When Mad Max woke up after surgery, the room was bright and cold. Machines beeped steady beside his bed, and a uniformed officer sat just inside the doorway. He couldn't move much. Tubes were running through his nose and arms, and his stomach was wrapped in heavy bandages. His body looked still, but his mind was running wild. Every sound made him flinch. Every footstep outside that door made him think someone was coming to finish the job. Police kept him under constant watch because they knew how dangerous his name was. Word had already spread that Mad Max was alive, and that was enough to make the hospital itself a target. Rival sets whispered that if they couldn't get him in the courtyard, they'd find a way to reach him inside. Officers rotated shifts around the clock, while NLMB members camped outside pretending to be visitors, trying to figure out how to protect him. But the block politics were different now. Some of them weren't even sure they wanted to. Inside the streets, the story changed fast. The same night he identified Terrell, KTS Hellrel Webb, somebody leaked the rumor. Drill blogs and Instagram pages started posting captions like, "Mad Max snitched before dying." Screenshots of fake police reports and hospital statements spread online within hours. Some said he begged for safety before giving the name. Others said he cried, saying he didn't want to die. Nobody knew which version was true, but in the streets, rumors travel faster than facts. Back in Terror Town, NLMB members were split. Some felt loyalty and wanted to protect their fallen brother. Others said he broke the one rule that no one could ever break. They argued in cars, on calls, even at vigils that never got announced. A few older members reminded everyone what he'd done for the hood, how many times he put himself on the line, but the younger ones couldn't ignore the code. To them, talking to cops erased everything else. The same man who once terrified the East Side now became the subject of quiet debate, whether to protect his name or let it fade. In the hospital, Max barely spoke. Nurses said he would wake up crying some nights, pulling at the restraints, whispering names that no one understood. They kept him under heavy medication, but his fear didn't fade. He asked often if the police were still outside, if anyone had come for him, if the lights could stay on. Even with sedation, his mind stayed locked on the streets. The paranoia that once kept him alive now kept him from resting. A month after the shooting, his mother finally came to see him. She arrived with an escort because police wanted to keep her safe too. When she walked into the room, he looked smaller than she remembered, pale and quiet under the white sheets. For years, she'd watched him slip deeper into the streets, always saying she'd pray him out one day. That day never came. She held his hand and cried while he stared at the ceiling. Witnesses said he didn't say much, only whispered, "Ma, I'm tired." She left soon after, escorted back out the same hallway lined with cops. It was the first and last time she saw him alive. Outside the hospital, the gossip wouldn't stop. Some people said he was trying to cut a deal with detectives, offering names in exchange for protection. Others said he told his lawyer he wanted peace between NLMB and Black Mob. Police denied everything, saying they never took an official statement beyond that first identification. Still, the idea that he might have been talking made people restless. Rival members wanted confirmation, while his own side just wanted the story to disappear. Reporters tried to get details, but law enforcement stayed quiet. Legal experts argued about whether his words could even count as a dying declaration. Some said he was delirious, that his statement wasn't reliable. Others said it was clear enough to hold weight. For the police, that question didn't matter anymore. For the streets, it mattered more than anything. A dying man's words could ruin a lifetime of reputation. Inside those hospital walls, Max's body kept giving up on him slowly. The infection spread from his wounds, his breathing got weaker, and he had to be placed on a ventilator again. Nurses said he sometimes cried silently when no one was watching, tears rolling down without sound. A guard once mentioned that he mumbled the same line over and over, "They won't let me go." Whether he meant the streets or his pain, no one ever knew. By the end of August, doctors told police he might not make it through another week. The bullet fragments in his spine caused complications that no surgery could fix. His organs began to shut down, one by one. On September 3rd, 2018, at 9:42 p.m., Christopher Mad Max Jackson was pronounced dead at age 23. The officer on duty signed the paperwork, while the nurse folded the sheet over his face. News of his death hit the east side fast. Within hours, drill pages posted his photo with captions like, "The Legend of Terrortown Gone." NLMB members lit candles and played G Herbo's old tracks in silence. Some mourned, others stayed cold, saying the streets raised him, the streets took him. His death didn't end anything, it just multiplied the myth. People started calling him a Chicago Grim Reaper, the one who lived by the gun and died by it. Songs, documentaries, and YouTube clips turned his life into a story half truth and half legend. He became both warning and inspiration, proof of what loyalty costs when the code matters more than life. In the end, his story was more than just blood and bullets. It was about a kid who grew up with nothing, learned fear too early, and died chasing survival. He had power, he had enemies, and he had choices. But in Chicago, choices like his never lead anywhere but the same cold room with a white sheet. The name Mad Max died that night, but the myth that followed him still walks the east side like a shadow that never fades. Terrell KTS Hellrell Webb didn't get far after the shooting. Within a week, police traced the car used in the attack to a relative's address on the south side. They raided the spot before sunrise and found Rell hiding in the basement with 2 pistols and extra magazines. His mugshot hit the internet that same day, his face swollen and blank. The words "attempted murder" printed across the report. For the streets, it felt like a scene out of a movie. The same name Mad Max spoke in his final hours, now staring back from the screen in cuffs. When Max died weeks later, the charge was upgraded to first-degree murder. That shift brought attention from both sides. NLMB members saw it as validation, the system confirming what Max had said before dying. Black Mob and Lakeside saw it as betrayal, calling it proof that Max had really talked. The war didn't calm, it just changed shape. Instead of bullets flying, it was courtroom whispers, revenge threats, and quiet tension in the hallways outside every hearing. The trial started in 2019, but dragged for years. Prosecutors leaned heavily on Max's dying declaration, arguing that his statement identifying Rell was made under the belief he was about to die, making it legally admissible. The defense fought back, saying he was sedated and incoherent, that his words couldn't be trusted after multiple surgeries. Witnesses were hard to find, as always, and no physical evidence placed Rel at the scene beyond that old testimony. By the time it reached a verdict in 2023, the drama had already worn everyone down. Reporters filled the gallery waiting for closure that never really came. When the judge read the decision, Rel was found guilty of aggravated battery with a firearm, but not murder. He faced more than a decade behind bars, but escaped the life sentence everyone expected. NLMB members outside the courtroom called it injustice, saying the system always failed when it mattered. Rel's people called it redemption, claiming he beat a case built on the words of a dying man who broke the code. Chicago's streets took the news the same way they take everything, with silence first, then chaos later. Old beefs woke back up, and new songs started dropping online. Drill pages posted side-by-side photos of both men with captions like, "One dead, one locked, same story." Nobody celebrated because nobody really won. Detectives quietly closed several unsolved cases that had Christopher Jackson's name listed in their files. They said new information linked him to at least 4 murders, though none would ever see trial. To them, justice came in paperwork. To the neighborhoods he came from, justice never really came at all. In the end, the story of Mad Max and Hell Rel became another chapter in Chicago's long cycle of blood and retaliation. The courtroom closed, the cameras left, and the streets kept breathing. 2 names carved into the same tragedy, proof that in this city, revenge never sleeps, it just changes faces.